How's it going, everybody? Ah, the wonderful world of cube names. Wait, where's everybody going? Cube names have kind of become infamous in the cubing community over the past few years, as they've evolved from more than just Chinese words to now being a crazy mass of letters and numbers that don't really mean much of anything. So today we're going to be looking at how cube names have evolved, and we're going to be looking at certain manufacturers' patterns of naming their cubes and having things having a similar name. In the early 2010s, Moyu established their naming system that they still use today in some of their cubes. And the way it works is that the suffix corresponded to the type of cube that it was. For example, Po meant 2x2, Long meant 3x3, Su meant 4x4, Twang meant 5x5, Shi meant 6x6, and Fu meant 7x7. And this system is still used by Moyu and YJ in some of their cubes. And this was good because it evolved from more than just Chinese words to Chinese words, but with an actual meaning that we can understand of, okay, that's a 4x4 or that's a 7x7, for example. And a few years later, Qi actually started their own series of 2x2 through 7x7, the Wu series, and they also use a similar system where the prefix is the same and the suffix has something to do with the layers of the cube, but they didn't use the same suffixes as Moyu, they used different ones. This is a bit of a side tangent here, but most of the Wu series of cubes came out between like 2015 and 2017, but then randomly in 2019, Qi finally finished the Wu series of cubes up with a Wu 3x3, the Wu Wei. Of course, this was during the period where the Volk Elite kept getting delayed and people were just waiting for it. My life is not complete. Where's the Volk Elite? And Qi was just trying to release cubes to fill the gap. They released the Wu Wei, they released the Thunderclap V3, and they released the Factory Magnetic Original Volk. But the thing interesting about the Wu Wei is that Wei, which was used as the suffix for 3x3, is actually one of the prefixes that Moyu used, Wei Long, Wei Po, etc., etc. Isn't that interesting? No? It's not interesting? Okay. Now let's move on to talking about GAN cubes names. Oh boy, these are interesting. GAN cube names were some of the first to not be just Chinese words, and they also tell you something about the cube. And they used the digits at the end of the cube name. For example, 356, 460, 251. And the first digit means what layer of cube it is, and the next two digits are how many millimeters in size one side is. And this might seem helpful, but when you consider GAN and how most of their 3x3s are 56 millimeters, and most of their cubes are 3x3s, the label of 356 on the majority of the cubes really doesn't mean anything, it just tells you what you already know. This is why most people will leave out the 356 when naming GAN 3x3s, they'll just say GAN XS, GAN X, GAN 11M Pro. And as for the other words and letters in the GAN cube's titles, they mean... But anyways, I would say that GAN cube names are one of the biggest factors of why cube names are kind of infamous nowadays. Speaking of cube names that really don't have anything to do with the actual cube, let's talk next about XMan Designs cube names. Well, they always seem to be kind of like trying to be cool, Shadow, Tornado, Spark, Volt, Galaxy. They're making a 2x2 that's called Flare. But then they also have, Bell and Wingy. I don't know who thought that was cool. Finally today, I want to talk about a fairly recent cube name disaster, and I actually mentioned it in last week's episode about the MF3RS cubes and how they've sort of changed their naming scheme in the middle of the series. So, Mophang Jyoshi comes out with the MF3. The 3 means 3x3. Then they come out with the MF3RS. The RS doesn't really mean anything in particular. The 3 still means 3x3. Then they come out with the MF3RS2. The 3 means 3x3. The 2 means the second iteration. Then they come out with the MF3RS3. And the first 3 means 3x3. The second 3 means third iteration. Sometimes it's shortened as RS3. But it's still, that's what it means.
And then this year they came out with the RS3M 2020, and it's kind of ambiguous what it means, but you could still say it's an updated version of the RS3, so the 3 still means 3x3, it's just shortened again. And then this year they come out with the RS2M and RS4M. So the RS2M should be a magnetic version of the MF3 RS2, and the RS4M should be the next 3x3 in the line, right?
Of course not. That would make sense. They can't possibly do that.
Look, I guess it makes more sense to newcomers for them to be a 2x2 and a 4x4, but it's like denying that the first few cubes in the series ever existed.
In the end, cube names really don't matter that much. What matters is how good the cube is, not what the cube's name is. And we shouldn't really get super angry over cube names not really making sense or denying that previous entries existed. But if they make an RS5